trouble for both boys. They exhibited destructive behavior in class and struggled academically as well, and often engaged in petty crimes such as shoplifting. And teachers would note their tendency to bully other children and their apparent lack of empathy. And despite these red flags, the extent of their potential violence remained unrecognized, which, I don't know, maybe it's just because I watch way too much true crime, but if my kid was bullying the other kids or like hurting animals and stuff, you know, straight to the asylum. I'm just kidding. I'd get him to talk to somebody. So on February 12th, 1993, the lives of these two boys and their young victim, James Bulger, would intersect in a tragedy that shook the nation. And the day began like any other at the New Strand shopping center in Bootle, Merseyside. And 2-year-old James was with his mother, who momentarily lost sight of him at the butcher shop. And in those crucial moments, Venables and Thompson spotted the toddler and made the fateful decision to lure him away. And CCTV footage would actually capture this chilling scene of the two boys leading James away by the hand. Anyway, only once were they stopped and challenged by a witness, to which they stated James was just their little brother. And what followed was a prolonged ordeal of unimaginable cruelty. For several hours, Venables and Thompson subjected James to severe physical abuse. And they inflicted 42 separate injuries on the toddler, including devastating head trauma from a 22-pound iron bar. And in a macabre attempt to cover up their tracks, they placed James' body on a nearby railway tracks, hoping to make his death appear as an accident. And the discovery of James' body sent shockwaves through the community and ignited a massive police investigation. And initially, the perpetrators' identities remained unknown, but the breakthrough came with the analysis of the CCTV footage from the shopping center.
The body was discovered on a railway line right next to a police station in Walton, Liverpool, over 2 miles from where he disappeared.
And the grainy images of the two young boys leading a toddler away became crucial evidence in identifying Venables and Thompson. And it's just such a, like, off-putting and eerie and heartbreaking photo. Like, I don't know. It just makes me sick to my stomach.
Over the next few days, about 60 youngsters were questioned. Then police were tipped off about 2 younger boys truanting from school when James went missing.
So when they said 10-year-old boys, you think, oh well, it's got to be done. Information's come in, so we've got to go and see him and interview him.
But you
to
weren't
eliminate
expecting
him.
that you know, they could possibly be the ones?
Oh no, I didn't.
As the investigation progressed, both boys initially denied any involvement in the crime. However, under intense questioning, their stories began to unravel.
It was like pulling teeth. Everything was coming slowly, and you had to have a lot of patience to interview a guy, you saw a young boy like that.
And the turning point came when Venables, overwhelmed by guilt, confessed to the killing, and his words were, quote unquote, "I did kill him. What about his mum? Will you tell her I'm sorry?" And it just revealed the weight of his actions and hinted at a glimmer of remorse, I guess. And the arrest of 2 10-year-old boys for such a heinous crime just sent shockwaves through the British society.
Public anger was almost unprecedented. There was a near riot the first time the two appeared in court.
And the legal system faced a very unprecedented challenge: how to try children so young for a crime of this magnitude. And despite their age, the decision was made to try Venables and Thompson as adults, a move that would spark intense debate about the juvenile justice system. And the trial would begin November 1993, drawing intense media coverage and public attention. And the courtroom proceedings were a somber affair, with the gravity of the crime contrasting sharply with the youth of the defendants. And the prosecution presented a case that detailed the brutal nature of the murder, while the defense grappled with the task of representing clients who were still children themselves. Like, I don't know, I can't imagine, like, you see murderers on trial, like, you know, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years old, and you have, like, no remorse for them, but, like, for a little 10-year-old kid, you're like, were they just confused? Is it something they saw on TV? Like, I don't know even how you justify it, but at the same time, like, they knew what they were doing. I mean, they planned to put him on the tracks to, like, cover up what they did, and they lured him away. Like, it was all premeditated. So it's very hard and confusing. And throughout the trial, psychological evaluations of Venables and Thompson painted a complex picture. Experts testified about their troubled backgrounds, potential personality disorders, and the impact of their upbringing on their behavior. And these assessments raised difficult questions about culpability, rehabilitation, and the nature of evil in children. And the presiding judge, in his summary, described the crime as, quote unquote, an act of unparalleled evil and barbarity. And the sentiment just echoed the public's mood and set the tone of the verdict and sentencing. And both Venables and Thompson were found guilty of murder and sentenced to be detained, quote unquote, at Her Majesty's pleasure, the judge said, which is like kind of based. And this intermediate sentence meant that they would serve a minimum of 8 years before being considered for release. And the aftermath of this trial saw continued debate about the appropriate treatment of juvenile offenders. Questions would arise about the effectiveness of rehabilitation programs for young criminals and the balance between punishment and reform. And the case became a touchstone for discussions about the nature of evil, the origins of violent behavior in children, and the responsibility of society in preventing such tragedies. And in 2001, after serving 8 years, both Venables and Thompson were released under new identities. And this decision was met with controversy and public outcry, naturally. And authorities argued that they were now 18-year-old men and had been rehabilitated and deserved a chance at a new life. However, many, including James Bulger's family, felt that the punishment had not fit the crime. And the release came with strict conditions, at least. Both men were given new identities and relocated to an undisclosed location. And a worldwide injunction was put in place to protect their new identities, and a measure deemed necessary due to the high-profile nature of the case and potential threats to their safety, which I understand, and it is fair as long as, police are aware of them and they're being monitored. But as we will see, this protection, however, would just prove to be a point of contention in the years to come. And the years following their release have seen divergent paths from Venables and Thompson. While Thompson has reportedly not reoffended and maintained a low profile, Venables' story has taken a very dark turn. He had been recalled to prison multiple times, primarily for offenses related to child abuse images. And these reoffenses have reignited public debate about the efficiency of rehabilitation for certain types of offenders and the long-term consequences of childhood trauma and criminal behavior. And the case of John Venables and Robert Thompson continues to cast a long shadow over discussions of juvenile justice in the UK, and even beyond. And while the Bulger case shocked the nation in 1993, an equally disturbing crime had unfolded decades earlier. And that brings us to our next case, which is the case of Mary Bell. In 1968, a young girl's actions would challenge everything society thought they knew about childhood violence. What could drive an 11-year-old to commit murder not once, but twice? So Mary Bell was born May 26, 1957 in Northumberland, England, to Betty and supposedly Billy Bell. And her early life was marked by severe neglect and abuse, setting the stage for the troubled child she would become. Mary's mother, a lady of the night, reportedly expressed disdain for her newborn, saying, quote unquote, "Take that thing away from me," indicating a profound lack of maternal attachment from the very beginning. And the extent of Mary's troubled upbringing became increasingly apparent as she grew older. Her mother attempted to give her away multiple times, subjecting her to both physical and emotional harm. In one particularly alarming incident, Mary was hospitalized after allegedly overdosing on her grandmother's medication, raising serious concerns about her safety and well-being within her family environment. And her mother would actively ignore family attempts and offers to take Mary into custody. She would just be like, no. Even though she hated her daughter, she wanted to keep her. And she would even later allow her clients, because she was a lady of the night, to do things to her daughter as well, which is horrendous and horrible and fucking atrocious. And these early experiences of neglect and abuse had a profound impact on Mary's psychological and emotional development. The constant rejection and lack of nurturing care likely contributed to her difficulty in forming healthy attachments and understanding empathy. And this emotional deficit would later manifest in her interactions with others, particularly in her capacity for violence against younger children. And on May 25th, 1968, just one day before her 11th birthday, birthday, Mary Bell committed her first murder. She would strangle a 4-year-old boy named Martin Brown in a derelict house, supposedly with her